Inspiring Uganda.
Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. Today we focus on something that is patent, that fills the hearts of every Ugandan. A social issue that should be an issue come 2026 general elections. The unemployment rates in this country are alarming, especially when you look at the young people that come out of university and are looking for employment. But 40 years of the NRM government, what have they done? Why are they falling short? Where is the mismatch between our education and the employment? Is there a mismatch and how can it be resolved? The biggest issue we're going to be discussing tonight is where are the failures, where are the challenges, but also we'll get to the solutions on the education part, but also on the unemployment part. Even as we go further to look into the unemployment in this country, that should be an issue when we come to the 2026 elections, these are the numbers. When you look at the numbers, especially generally of unemployment in this country, you look at the labor force at about 72%. But also when you look at our numbers of unemployment, they're at about 2.9% coming to 3%. The biggest being in 2005, where we had the numbers go as far as 3.8%. When you look at the young people's population in this country, it's about 42%. And the biggest question is, where's the mismatch between the 72% that is employable and the 42% that is in the workforce, minus that? When we go deeper to look at what the proximities of young people being graduated from different universities or formal education, there are 12%, and more of these are coming into the formal sector. But it can only absorb a very small number. The number that we're looking at overall, unemployment, which we talked about between 2.9% and 3%, but also the biggest one of young people is at 4.5%. We're talking about a working class of between 18 and 35%. And these are the statistics in the years that have been before. When we look at 2020, we look at about 4.9%. The biggest was, especially during that COVID season, 2020, it goes up to 5.9%, drops down to 2021, where it was about 5.21% there. 2022, it goes to about 4.5%, and it has been consistent to 2023. Those are some of the statistics that you need to look at. But also the youth unemployment rate has been the highest at 5.9% in 2020. And the increment went on in 2019 there. So those are the numbers we're looking at, especially in terms of unemployment. When we look at the whole country, especially in the north, the east, those are the biggest culprits of unemployment in this country. And we see a lot of migration coming to the urban centers or the trading centers seeking employment or better opportunities. Today, that's the focal point of the pain point of every young person. Let me introduce the panel.
Employment. George Michael Mukula, commonly known as Mike Mukula, is a Ugandan businessman, politician and a professional pilot. He represented Soroti municipality from 1996 to 2016 in the Parliament of Uganda. He owns a conglomerate of 28 companies under the Mukula Group of Companies. Lawrence Muganga is a Ugandan-Canadian scholar, digital economy educationist, academic administrator, and serves as the Vice-Chancellor of Victoria University, Uganda. He is the author of You Can't Make Fish Climb Trees, From Chalk to Chatbots, as well as Authentic University. Sarah N. Sally, a Ugandan social scientist, researcher, academic, and academic administrator. She is director at the Institute of Gender Studies, Makerere. Honorable Paul Omara, an entrepreneur, a former banking executive with many African countries, and now Member of Parliament for Otuke County, Lira District. Dr. Fred Muhumuza, a senior lecturer at the Makerere University Business School, MUBS, and the director of the MUBS Economic Forum.
All on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
Now that you've met the panel, you can be part of this conversation. Go to our YouTube channel, drop your comments there, let us know what you think. The number to text us or WhatsApp us is 0709 60 25 92. For for your messages. We'll be reading them at the top of the hour and also when we come back at about 11 there. We're also streaming live on X. Get there, drop your comment, let us know what you think, how this is affecting you or a loved one, especially on the dependency that we have in this country. Lady and gentlemen, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for coming. I want to start on this note, especially the road carnage that has, especially from the weekend all the way to today, in Buikwe, but also the biggest one that happened the wee hours of Saturday morning, Rajiv Ruparelia passing on and yesterday cremated. That also brings a limelight to what our road usage looks like and also what contractors should be doing. And we're going to pay our tributes to him. And I would like to start with Professor, since I saw him making some comments and giving us everything that was. I'll start with you and I'll go to Honorable Mukula and I'll come to Professor, Dr. Mhumza, and finally I'll end with Honorable Omara. Professor, very sad news, especially one of your proprietors of Victoria University, someone who was out there. Your tribute to the late Rajiv.
Good evening, viewers. Thank you for being with us tonight. Sometimes I may run short of words, but I want to continue sending my thoughts and prayers. I know they are not good enough to the family of Sudhir Ruparelia for having lost Rajiv. They did not lose him as a family alone, but as a country. We lost someone who is great, a very kind man, a man who really loved this country and wished this country everything great that he could have known or he dared to learn and bring back home in this country. So he has not just been my director or one of the founders or proprietors of Victoria University. He has been a friend, and that friendship graduated to the level of being a brother. So to me, I have lost a brother, but to the parents that I know are broken, I really pray that God comforts you, continues to really guide you in the most difficult days ahead. It's not going to be easy. Losing someone as good, as great, a person who did not distinguish between a person who is pushing a cart in the marketplace, either in Owino or Nakasero, to the topmost person. He treated everyone equally. So we are really going to miss Rajiv, but most importantly, we really have to keep the family, Mr. Sudhir, the wife, the two daughters, the in-laws, into our prayers. They have lost someone great, and it's a gap that will really, really never be filled. The wife as well, the little daughter, 3 years old. These are memories, they don't, what we witnessed in the last 3 days, it's not something they want to keep within themselves. And ourselves, we don't really see that as something that we were used to seeing. It is shocking, it is threatening, but I always tell people that in this world we live in a bus, and every bus has a bus stop. Most of us, we have our bus stops. What we don't know is which day will I reach my bus stop, but all of us, we must go. So we keep praying for the family and this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Honorable Captain Mike Mukula.
I want to say that Uganda, we lose 14 people per day. You know, the lives lost. And from the beginning of this year to May this year, we have had 5,154 fatal accidents. And those, as you realize, come up with 25,107 crashes on the roads. That's huge.
Yeah.
It is about 6.4% increase from last year. Now, this one here was significant in that my friend Sudhir Ruparelia and family, I've had a young man who was promising, the only son Sudhir has, a family that, if you note this, the Ruparelia group run 28 companies, huge mega companies, is one of the largest taxpayers in the country. A large property owner, a property mongo, running schools, hospitality in terms of hotels. As you do recall, he hosted the CHOGAM, the Commonwealth Conference, and he hosted it very well, including the family, as you know, hosted the G7 7 plus China,
Yes.
and the non-aligned conference. That is a very important thing to you to know, that this is a family that is an asset to Uganda. You'll also want to note that the Asian community contribute about 64.7% to the economy of this country. And Sudhir is one of the large taxpayers, as I've said earlier. I have known Rajiv from the time of his infancy. I remember I used to drive with Sudhir Ruparelia rallies. Sudhir drove the rally. And Ajip rally, I remember from not far away from here, if you Crested Towers, there was Ajip petrol station. And I do recall very clearly, he had a Nissan PA10. And every time he revved, before he was put on before he was flagged off, I think it was car number 3 or so on the line on the queue, he hugged Rajiv 9 times. I remember that very well. He would hug his son, send him back, then he calls him back again, hugged him, called him back. And I want to tell you, rally was passed on to the son from his father. Rajiv, for me, as the patron of Motorsport Africa and a patron of UFMU, the federation, we have lost one of the most aggressive rally drivers Uganda has ever had, promising. My son is equally in motor rally. He's going to participate in the Africa Rally Championship in Mbarara. But I want to tell you, the motor fraternity has been deeply hurt. And to me, I want to extend my deepest and sincere condolences to the Ruparelia family. Sudhir, Dr. Sudhir, I know how painful it is. I know how difficult the challenge you're going through. But to Josna, the mother, I listened to her. I was up country. I'll be going to the family tomorrow. But let me say, may his soul rest in eternal peace. We have lost a young, promising man.
Thank you.
At 35 years.
Professor Sarah.
It is a very somber mood. I didn't know Rajiv personally, and I've not interacted with the Sudhirs personally, but I think every normal human being can relate with death. Death is a thing we never get used to, and it is especially terrible when you lose a child at that age. Everyone here is a parent, and every parent's fear and nightmare is to lose the child. And that's why many people, especially on the African continent, pray that at least they go before their children. So that it happened the way it happened, actually it was a very big shock to everybody. So you can imagine, it was a very dull day that Saturday, but you can imagine what those who knew him, and especially the parents, were going through. Because we who were peripherally connected, we've just heard about the Ruparelias, thought this was a very, very terrible thing. And of course, we have always passed that route, and we've seen those boulders, and we maybe somehow never ask questions. Of course, we have always wondered why they are not removed and why it's not completed. But I think in Uganda, we are given extra doses of patience. But that when that happened, and then people started reporting that it has been a common occurrence there, then the question is, so why has nothing been done about it? So it is sad that Rajiv died at the time he died, and he has left a young family, he has left a child who is going to continue asking questions. But I think his death should not be in vain. We should also ask the serious questions of why do projects take so long to be completed? Uganda has one of the worst road carnage in the world in terms of traffic accidents. Since 2022, more than 10,000 people die per year. I think in 2023 they rose to 12,000.5. So people are always dying on Ugandan roads. And the question is, so why do we have one of the worst road carnages in the world? And what can we do about it? I think this is a point of reflection, of seeing how do we make the roads safer, because most of the reasons why our road carnage is so high is man-made and therefore can be resolved. But also we need to think beyond the road, because if your road traffic record is like that, how does it impact on business? How does it impact on investment? Yeah. How does it, but we know we live in a country where everything is in a silo. I think it's high time we saw the interconnectedness. And when we are talking about death, you're not even talking about the maiming, you're not talking about what this means for the cost of the health care budget, because you go to Mulago, there are very many people there. So it is impacting on every other sector in terms of cost, in terms of expenditure, in terms of driving away business. And it cannot just be business as usual that, oh, someone has died, and of course we are normally told God has called them, their day has reached. But I think the president one time asked why God is always calling Africans earlier than other people. So it's high time we reflected on why this occurs in our setting, the way it occurs, and we try to find solutions. So we hope the family, of course, deserve their privacy to mourn and grieve. But I think those beyond that, the responsible people need to ask questions so that this death is not in vain. So in conclusion, I would say rest in peace, Rajiv. We didn't know you, but we hope the next journey you're taking it on well. And we send our condolences to Sudhir and Josna Ruparelia, and to the younger baby, the younger child, to the wife, and to all those connected. It is not a good thing here.
Dr. Mhumza.
Condolences to the Ruparelia family. I didn't know much about Rajiv, but at least I've had a close contact with the father. But that said, he has built his own legacy. Really, you could see everybody was talking about his own achievements. At 35, he had already put out quite a lot of himself. You'd have expected him to disappear in the shadows of the father. But they have been out there, and you really see people he has touched in life across the spectrum. The sad part of it is life will simply move on and we don't draw lessons. In Uganda, at times we take things and then it's in the papers, it's in our faces, it is in our minds. A week passes and that's it, and the status quo continues. Because going by the information I've been hearing, there are many other accidents happening in the different parts. And now we have so many roads really that are not complete. So I will not be surprised that every day something is happening in some other area, the way we use our roads. So we need to draw, the best we can do is to draw lessons out of these bad incidents so that his legacy continues to improve where we're going to be living and how we are going to be living.
Thank you very much. Lastly, Honorable Mara.
Yeah, the death of Rajiv was a big shock to many of us. He was an uprising star. He was a captain of the industry. As Captain Mukula said, he was actually now running a number of factories. And his father had mentored him so well that he had now started to relax. You know, when you've groomed your son and the only son, and he was running literally everything on behalf of the father. And what is so concerning is the manner in which he died. We have, on this particular show, complained severally about the manner in which we carry out activities in the country, the shambolic roads in Kampala. The bypass has actually taken us 20 years It's the most expensive roads that have ever been built. And it's unbelievable that even up to today, some of these roads are not completed. And these people were able to block the road, and he wasn't aware the pavers were there, and therefore he lost his life. So I think it's a big lesson for the country that we should really take responsibility for our work, and that his death should not be in vain. You know, it takes somebody like him to pass on, so for us to wake up and realize that our environment is actually very poor. So I think the ministry should take up responsibility and ensure they cannot never pay enough money to compensate his death. But I think it should be a wake-up call for the country, for us to be more responsible. So our deepest condolences to Sudhir and the family for the loss of such a wonderful and humble young man that were literally loved by all. I've seen the tweets. Nobody is really commenting anything negative about the young man, because he plowed through all the strata regardless of his very high position and wealth. He was eating with the ghetto people, drinking with the lawless of persons. So very humble man, and I think he has lived his life to the fullest. We would have loved to have him more. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Thank you very much. And our condolences go out to the family, even in this trying time, even all those road carnages that have happened on our different roads. I think the question should be, we should be responsible on those roads, but also the people need to be held accountable. I saw General Katumba answering a few questions. That will be a story of another day. Yeah. Let's get into our gist of conversation, unemployment in this country and where its mismatch is. And these are the numbers, especially from UBOS, that caught me. Between 0 and 17, we have 50% of the population. That's about 23 million young people. Those are basically dependents. Then between 15 and 30, there are about 10.2 to 11 million young people. Now, the statistics show the workforce should be between 14 and 64 years of age. In this country, the workforce is 25.1%. Those are the numbers that we need to pay attention to. And of that, the ones that are really in the workforce today that we need to be looking at are about 10.2 million there, according to 2019 statistics there. And the challenge is that 5.2 million of those are not employed, are not educated, and are not trained. That is very alarming for what we're looking at. But also part of that statistic is that 56% of those are in agriculture, and it's subsistence agriculture. So the numbers predicted for 2025 unemployment is up close to 3.3%. That's where the numbers look like they're going there. The biggest question is, these numbers of unemployment are there, and 700,000 young people annually are trying to find jobs, either coming in the city or moving to areas where they are trying to get something. So let me get to Honorable Captain Mike Mukula. Honorable, your government has been in power coming to 40 years. Unemployment is an issue that has been here. You are all vying to be government come 2026, 2031. Why has the NRM government failed to answer the question of young people being unemployed in this country?
I think, first of all, let's focus on the cause. And then you ask the question, why? And then how, and then what? These are the questions you put forward. By 1986, when the National Resistance Movement took over power, the population of Uganda was nearly 14 million people. Over a period of time, the population has grown. And you'll note that at one time, Uganda's population growth, if you measure, even today it was about 3.2%. And when you look at the overall framework of the population, Uganda's population at one point was growing. If you look at the overall framework, Uganda's population grew and expanded. And you'll note that from the statistics you've just given, the fertility rate has been one of the highest in the African continent. Uganda hosts the youngest population in the African continent, possibly in the world. Fertility rate at one point was 6.6 fertility rate per mother projected. And out of this, you will note that the figures UBOS has given are near accurate from what we have. The current population is below the age of 30, is close to 80%. The figures that I have, which are close to UBOS, is that between the age between 0 to born today, the children born today, and 4 years, up in the range of about 8 million children. 8 million children between the age of 0 to 4 years. 8 million. And these figures show you very clearly that with this demographic balloon that we have, by 1986, the national resistance movement inherited a failed state, in that inflation at about 189% thereabouts. If you looked at the factories that Uganda had, it were about 82 factories that were in Uganda at that time. Today, we are close to 10,000 factories.
Honorable,
now the question you're asking...
Allow me to jump in there. How long are we going to blame our failures on our past? Because you have been here 40 years. The number of the working class is 25 million. Of that 25 million, if we're to zero it down to just the ones between 18 and 30, is 10.2 million. Half of that is in subsistence agriculture, meaning 5.2 million young people are in that. 40 years, you have the National Planning Authority, you have given us a roadmap, a manifesto, every single electoral year for the last 6 elections. Why has NRM failed to solve this problem both in the future and where we are?
Let's look at it this way. 55% of the population, between 50 and 55% of the population of Uganda is unemployable. They're young, 55%.
True.
If you look at the employable population, from the figures you have quoted, near about 11 million.
Yes.
Out of these, in government, you can employ only about 600 to 750. The figures are, you could get that from UBOS.
Yes.
Now the private sector, the rest is passed on to the private sector. The factors that generate employment must be always in place, and that's what the national resistance movement has been working on. 1, roads. Because if you want to tackle unemployment or deal with poverty, because Uganda's challenges now that we face, and you note that for 23 to 25 years of the national resistance movement, half of the country was paralyzed in war. And people do not understand the challenges the movement has fought to bring the country into stability. 1, until the last 25 to 30 years, even up to date, our boots are deep in the DRC Congo. But look at it this way. Half of the country paralyzed, fighting Uganda Rescue Front Part 2, West Nile Bank Front Part 2, Lakwena, Kony, UPA. We have fought groups like Itongwa here. We have fought Uganda Rescue, the groups in Rwenzori. the ones that we have pursued deep into the DRC Congo now, ADF. When you have a country paralyzed, it does not produce. That's one factor. We are glad that now the country has now gained peace and stability from the north to the south, east to the west. Uganda is stable. Uganda at the same time has fought and brought together the key factors of production, which is one, professor here will tell you, the human resource. Two, we must have in place the road infrastructure. By the time we took over power in 1986, we had close to 1,300 kilometers of tarmac roads. We are over 6,000 now as we talk. By 1986, we had only 2 generators giving you power of 62 megawatts. Today, we are over 2,000 megawatts and build 5 major dams. Today, by 1986, we are only 48,000 telephone lines working. Today, we are heading towards 30 million telephone lines working. These are all factors that generate production. And let me tell you one very important thing.
How comes we haven't got the productivity of the factors you are talking about?
Look at it first. Professor will tell you here. He's a professor of economics. Uganda's economy has been growing at a constant of 6%. What does that translate to? We have reduced poverty, and when you reduce poverty, it also translates into factors of production. In that, we have metamorphosed, reduced the number of those who were in subsistence agriculture. Don't forget, Uganda's comparative advantage is in agriculture because 48% of East Africa's arable land is in Uganda. Now, in order for you to add that value, you must now go into certain points of production. And if you talk about employment, there are only 4 key areas. One is in industry. Then the service sector. You know that very well. Then you have government. Then you must also go into areas which self-employment. Now, these are areas that the national resistance movement has been moving towards, are dealing with. And let me tell you one very important thing. Fighting poverty from a failed nation and growing an economy is not and shall not be from Genesis chapter 1, let there be, and it was. It takes work, sweat, and sometimes even blood to bring total peace to the country, to bring growth to the country, to ensure that now, if you look at Uganda's economy, to me, is one of the most buoyant economies in the African continent.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor, let me come to you. I actually quoted a statement that you said that really caught me, and you said, and I quote you, digital competence, proficiency of workers, refraining from consulting and collaboration, outdated methods are part of the challenges of unemployment. And this was a clip I watched you speaking to. We keep talking about 1986, we keep talking about good roads, we talk about peace, we talk about all these factors, but there's still multi-lines of poverty in this country. There's still poverty that to a point people can't have a meal a day. There's a huge population of young people coming out of Victoria University on an annual basis that can't find employment. What is holding back the productivity to kill this unemployment?
Timothy, thank you very much. Now, let me begin with the world Honorable Captain Mike Mukula is talking about. And I agree with him. Those things have been done. I'll give you an example. Let's begin there. I'll give you an example. I remember in Masaka, where I grew up from, we used to have one bus, okay? One that comes every Wednesday to come back to Kampala, or it comes Wednesday, then it goes back. So you have, if my mother had traveled to Kampala and you're expecting her next Wednesday and the bus passes without dropping her off, then you have to wait for another week because it was only one what?
Bus.
Those things have happened. We have seen them. And also, I should also add to what he has just said, that there is no government in the world, for sure, it doesn't happen, that will create jobs that are enough for its citizens. It doesn't happen.
No.
It doesn't happen. That we agree. But we also have to be sincere. We also know that out there are different growth models that anyone can see with. You just don't need to even have studied economics or business. No, I'll give you an example. And I think Dr. Muhumuza will really agree with me. And I also, he trained me to, I mean, we all stand on people's different shoulders. He also trained me economics, okay? But I want us, Timothy, and viewers to look at something very simple, which is the current global equity market capitalization, all right? And this is the total sum of capital markets. Like if you look at the capital markets, if you sum them up in the world, globally, they amount to close at 105 trillions, all right? The global equity market capitalization. And that has a lot to do with the GDP of every country that we see. Now, what contributes to that global equity market capitalization, the 100 trillions we are talking about, US dollars? You realize that 87 trillions or 87% is contributed by the traditional economy. And the traditional economy, if you want to know the typical example of a traditional economy, is our country, Uganda. Whatever we do, even the recent oil we have just discovered, okay? It's part of the traditional economy. Now, the 13 trillions or 13% is contributed by the disruptive innovation technology economy. And that has only happened in the last 3 to 6 years, 13 trillions. But now look at what is projected for 2030, and which is also which is something that is underestimated. And you can look at World Bank, you can look at World Economic Forum, you can look at our own African Development Bank, you can look at the ECA, Economic Commission of Africa, here in Addis. They all point to one thing, that this global equity market capitalization is likely to shoot to $300 trillion. And now, the contributors are going to look like this. The disruptive innovation technology economy is going to be 200 trillions. And the traditional economy is 100 trillions. That is actually, the new economy is almost 70%. And the old economy is about 30%. Now, you ask yourself a question. Everything we are doing in this country, including the education sector, you talked about young people, the schools, from primary, secondary to university, when they are nurturing and educating young people, you are educating them for which economy? The answer is they are being educated to go and work in the traditional economy. And I have showed you that the traditional economy is disappearing. And it started disappearing from 2000, not now. It started disappearing. And for us, we are pumping it with young people to go and work there. We are pumping them with the irrelevant information, irrelevant skills, irrelevant competencies to go and work in an economy that no longer exists. We are not looking at the new economy. I'll give you an example. There is a reason why the top tech giants, for example, you're looking at Apple, you're looking at Microsoft, you're looking at Tesla, you're looking at Google, you're looking at Nvidia, you're looking at Amazon. You can go on and on. There is a reason why they don't invest in oil. There is, and their market capitalization is bigger than the African GDP combined. So if you want to pursue a faster route to success, where do you go? Do you go to a dead path, or you pursue something that is actually vibrant and growing every day? So that is where we have gotten it wrong. So you look at Microsoft, its worth is bigger than the African continent GDP combined. Bill Gates is not, he's not naive to think that agriculture doesn't exist. He's not naive to think that there's no oil. He's not naive to think that there are no rabbits that can be reared somewhere. He's not naive to think that there are no chickens. He knows, but he also knows where money can be made. And that's why Microsoft is what it is. That's why it is bigger than Africa, not Uganda. Let's not incriminate Uganda alone. Bigger than what? Africa. So the world, no, we are talking about young people, Timothy and viewers. The young people, the language they understand today is technology. Look at us. Everyone has a phone here. No one taught us how to use a phone. But the education is not, the education we have today, it's a shame. And Professor Muhumuza can tell you, today you'll find a young person from primary to secondary, they are still being taught how to handwrite. And even when they're writing an exam, they're handwriting. And when they come to the world of work, they are told to submit a report that is typed. They have to use a skill they never learned. So you can understand the education system we are in today.
Thank you, Professor. Right? And I'm glad you have spoken of disruptive and also talked about the tradition. And I saw Honorable Mara really agreeing with Honorable.
I am glad he's coming from that world, but he sees it that it is actually a problem.
Honorable Mara, your district is one in that range of regions that is suffering the most.
Yeah.
When you look at the pains spoken by Honorable Mukula and the disruption caused by Professor Lawrence there and the rise of unemployment, what as you as a member of parliament, what are you doing to help this group of 10.2 million that we need in a workforce to be productive?
Timothy, the problem which is really creating a huge youth unemployment in Uganda is around our education system. And I wouldn't disagree with what Professor has talked about. I have some statistics here which I just want to show you. In the recent UBOS report on our education, it actually picked a group of people aged between 10 years and up to 100 years, and started categorizing them on the level of education, which speaks to our literacy rate, the level of our literacy. So people who have got no formal education from age 10 and above, there are 20.2%. Those with some primary education are 39.4. You combine those two, they are actually 59.6% of our people age 10 and above. 59.6% of that group. In fact, the total number of that group, there are 28.3 million. So if you take away 59.6, so you have 16.9 million Ugandans who are of working age, who are illiterate. Because some primary education is, they could have stopped in P2 or P3, they have not finished P7.
They can read and write.
I don't even know whether they can read and write. So 59.6%, that is 16.9 million people who are of working age, but who don't know how to read and write. Then you have those who have completed primary 7, there are 11.7%, which is actually 3.4 million people. Then some secondary education, they have stopped in senior 2 or senior 3, they are 16.6%, that is 3.4 million people. Then those who have completed secondary education, they are only 11.2%, which is actually 3.1. Then here is where, Prof, you are talking about. Post-secondary and above. Those who have finished secondary, post-secondary and above, which means they have gone to technical institute, they have gone for a diploma here, they have gone to the university, they are only 5.7 million. I mean 5.7%, which is 1.6 million people only. So in a population of 28.3 million people, you have those who have attained some level of education, some skills post-secondary, they're only 1.6. And the same statistic shows us something very interesting. The UBOS again tells us that in the factories, our factories are employing 1.4 million. We have about now 6,000 factories, 1.4 million people. Now let me just stop at factory without even going to some other places. Now, if you have post-secondary educated people, there are only 1.6 million. Now, your factories alone need 1.4. And Professor, I'm not even talking about the new employment requirements. I'm talking about the traditional ones. We still don't have people who are skilled to deal with the factory work that we need. If you, for example, you want people to go and work in Mukwano Industries, you want to get some electricians, or some people who are doing chemical engineering, they don't have an hands-on experience. We just teach them academic stuff, very little maybe coursework, and when you take them to industry, so we have not skilled these people to be fit even for the traditional industry. Which is worse now. So you are pumping out all our universities and technical schools. They pour out over 400,000 students into the workplace every year. They are powering them out of university. And you ask the question, so what skills do they have? And I'm happy the professors of universities are here. What skills do they have? Are they employable? And as we have noted, the world is moving towards new technology. The new job systems are now totally different. But we are still creating the same people, the same job streams are coming. So they are not employable. So you rather go, for us who are in the factory environment, so you rather go and have somebody who have even finished P7, who has been in that industry, in the factory environment for 5 years, 10 years. That person is more knowledgeable than somebody with a degree.
Okay.
So the question is, our education system has bastardized the employment opportunity for our young people. And when they come, they want to have white-collar jobs, dress in ties and look for jobs. But they cannot actually work with their own hands, and which is very sad. And Professor, we are talking about traditional industries, not the new ones which we are looking for.
Honorable, we'll come back to you on legislation and policy because that's where you fall.
Can I say something before you move? I have been to Singapore 3 times. And Singapore has nothing. No oil and gas, no good agricultural land where they can do a lot of things, no gold, nothing. But do you know what they have? Human capital. So the companies that you have mentioned have put Singapore, one of the main income earners for Singapore, which are contributed to their foreign currency reserves, is basically the flight of blue chip companies from Americas and Europe into Singapore to go and do R&D. Why are they doing R&D? Because the Singaporeans are so highly educated, 100% literacy rate, and highly skilled. So you pick any Singaporean and to open for you an iPad or whatever, they will take it into pieces and put it back. Why? Highly skilled.
Thank you. Let me bring in Dr. Mhumza. Dr. Mhumza, the same statistics that Honorable Mary is talking about of you, boss, say we are at 74% literacy levels. What are the factors that are leading to the rise of unemployment, and what do you see in the future, especially if we don't nip it now?
Well, there are very many things. First of all, the indicators you use, are they speaking to your realities?
Yes.
If you look at some of the things I have seen on how we measure unemployment, in the academic literature, there are so many definitions. So somebody will come and ask you, Timothy, have you been looking for a job over the last 2 weeks? If you say no, then you're not actively unemployed because you haven't been looking for a job. But in those last weeks, you might have been sick, or you had just taken a break from looking for jobs after wearing off your shoe, and you are tired, you know, you've given up. Let me let me rest. I'll resume next month. So if in those 2 weeks you have not been actively looking for a job, they remove you from the statistics. And then another one is, have you not worked in the last 1 week? Remember the other, not looking for a job.
You sound like census questions.
Not looking for a job is for the 2 weeks.
Yes.
But have you not worked in the last 1 week? what if I have worked in that last 1 week, but the only job I had was there was a wedding and I was told to come and guard the cars? No, you are employed.
Yeah.
But is there always a wedding in that village?
No.
But you worked and you were paid 10K for that day. You have worked. Like now NRM has been in their thing. There are some people who got a job, of course, to be around, to arrange people, to... So the definitions themselves leave the realities out there. So even when you say unemployment is 4%, is 5%, you possibly are not speaking to the realities on the ground. So that for me is the first thing you want to shelve, where we the academicians need to really think again. But we've also done some thinking to go over the lazy part of it, what we call decent employment. Why are people coming to work? These days you find more problems with those who are working because they are being paid 300,000, 250,000. Now 250,000, you're going to remove your transport. That's why you see a lot of walk to work. And they are sleeping in squalid places, really, which is not worth human habitation. But because they must sleep in an environment where they can walk and reach this factory you're talking about. Now you're going to see these factories have employed people. I mean, you need to drive through Ginger Road early morning.
Yeah. They're in the thousands.
And you see people in their thousands
Yes.
walking to go and work.
Yes, in the
Stop and
factories.
ask any of them how much they earn. Nothing more than 150,000. Now those are going to reflect on your figures as employed. But little are they. So when you put in a decent cost to go and work, you must eat, you must transport yourself, you must dress decently. And remember, many of them don't have uniforms, so if you are a lady, you can't come in the same dress you had yesterday. I mean, a man can disguise a trouser for a week, but also he must change at least a shirt or some. You find that the 200,000 or 150 is literally going back into the work. Do we call that work? So in economics, work has a role that it plays. Labor must play a contribution, one, in driving aggregate demand, which is what grows your economy. But also we say the demand for labor, no one just wants to create a job for the sake. It must be derived from what service are you offering. Timothy, you are here with your colleagues. There are even askaris out there. They will not be here if we didn't have this show running late in the night. So their employment is pegged to this show. So what is it that is going to drive employment in Uganda? And we're not strategic at all. And this is what Honorable Mara is saying. Singapore knew we are very small.
Yes.
We must go high-tech.
Yes.
Theirs is knowledge economy.
Knowledge economy, yes.
Can we be the ones to discover the tick vaccine?
Yes.
The COVID vaccine? The malaria dose? And all they are doing is really what the doctors will call the active ingredient.
Yes.
The actual manufacturing of that drug is going to happen in India, where there is space.
Yes.
But every time it happens, they have done a patent. Every dose you sell, Singapore will pick a portion.
Yes.
And they will be up there doing their thing. People who are playing games and mainly designing computer games, they are not using massive space like you're talking about an industrial park. No, these guys will sit in their sitting room on their laptop and design a game and sell that game at $1 billion. You are here struggling with coffee, how many kilograms? And how many pieces to raise 1 kilogram, and we all celebrate. I mean, we have to be strategic, and I don't think we have been strategic at all. We're just saying we have an arable land, we have rain here, we're importing tomatoes from Tanzania.
Food basket.
Are we strategic to employ these numbers as they come? So I don't want to be shocked that the numbers have come. It is just that we did not plan to be strategic because the numbers were very clear. When you have a birth rate of 6, a population growth rate of 3.1 or 2.9, you know you are going to be getting 1 million people every year coming into the country.
Yes.
17, 14 years later, that 1 million is looking for jobs. And then you want to say, you see there are people who are very many. I don't want to mention the district in his neighborhood. I looked at your neighbor results. We were talking about P7. There was one district in his neighborhood, they had 5 first grades. P7. 5 first grades. 4 boys and 1 girl. This district has a district chairman, has a cow, has an education officer, has a whole... They couldn't even pass at P7. More than 5
pupils
to get a first grade. So where are we going? So for me, I think we are not strategic enough. But also, Timothy, as I transition out, maybe we'll come back later. We've got to prepare ourselves for jobless growth. While we were seated here, I've paid my water bill. I received an invoice, paid before we disconnected. Of course, they were not going to disconnect me, it was a small margin. But they will always end that message, please pay before you are disconnected. So I have paid my water bill. I have received acknowledgement on phone. That is jobless growth.
Yes.
10, 15 years ago, that would be a whole line of staff who are working on receiving my money and giving me a paper receipt. So the economy where it has gone, jobless growth is going to be with us. And we've got to plan for that. How do you deal with an economy where people can't even find jobs, and not about skills? This country is even failing to hire doctors.
Exactly. It's
We
failing to
have
hire
seen
engineers.
medical intern. Is it a skill issue? Or is it that we have too many doctors? We certainly don't have them.
We have a small economy.
But we can't hire medical doctors. We have been on a debate of interns, should we not? So you don't even look at these fellows and say they have no skills. They're even those who are heavily skilled, and we have failed to hire them. So for me, it's lack of strategy. We write documents. A road here will cause growth. A road there will cause another growth. Put a power line there. I mean, you can have power lines. Football is played about strategy. This country must get, besides the plan, it's nice to have a strategy is more important than a plan.
And Dr. Mumza, please pin that question that you have asked, especially on jobless growth, and how do we prepare for it? When we come back, we'll be discussing that. Let me come to Professor. Professor, one of the things that I've seen is that, especially with our education system, it has been beaten from there to here. And if you need to go and study abroad, they will tell you, first, do it again. Where did we get this employment, unemployment mismatch wrong as a country?
Thank you very much, Timothy. I think hammering the education system is the...
Soft landing?
No, it's not even soft landing, it's evasion. It's trying to avoid the real problem.
What is the
real problem? First of all, with all the improvements we've had in health...
Now, Professor today is on the hot seat.
No. We are all professors here, just we are three. The improvements of health means people are going to live longer. But also population growth is a factor of improvements in the economy. So you're going to have more people. The question, of course, and with these many people, we have seen with the liberalization more investment in education institutions, whether they're talking about primary, whether they're talking about secondary, whether they're talking about universities. So that sector is working. The supply side is working. What we are really struggling with is the demand side, the consumption side. That's why we are told at every year we graduate around 40,000 graduates in this country. How many jobs are being created per year? 700, okay? On average. And most of them are in the private sector, okay? They're not in the public sector. That's why in this country, and I do sit on appointment committees, you advertise a job of an administrator who is applying. Engineers, doctors, everyone is there. So it's not a problem of the education sector. It's the problem of an economy which has not matched opportunities with the population. So education institutions are reinventing themselves, and they are reinventing themselves, and all the time they are being bashed. So we are now in competency-based. And Timothy, the interesting thing, and I've observed this because I'm not very young, is how in the past we were being told, oh, your NEB is a dead case. Children in international are more creative, they are more thinking, they meet in the labor market, and they are all floating, okay? So I think we need to address ourselves more critically to this problem, vis-a-vis our employment metrics and the opportunities that are there. I think simply blaming the education sector is being evasive. That is where I would want to go. It doesn't mean there is no need to improve. But I've told you that even a simple job of an administrator will attract the social scientists, will attract the engineers, will attract the doctors. It attracts everybody. Why? Because there are no opportunities. So that is one side. So it doesn't stop us improving the education side. But how can you also improve the education side? Like people talk about in the past things were better, or a P7 leaver is better than a graduate. Why are you talking about things like cost of labor? First of all, given our economy, most of us are our private sector. is not that big. So it's going for cheaper labor than for graduates who may appear to be more expensive. But other than that, you're also talking about, you may have to address the issues of the policies we have. How do you support, because Professor Muganga talked about how it will not only be the government to create jobs. In many places, the private sector plays a role creating jobs. What policies are we putting in place to support the private sector to grow and produce these jobs? Why do we have VAT taxation of 18% when in Nigeria it is 6%? I know we are always being told that the country is bigger, with a bigger population, so it can afford to be taxed less. But if you continue taxing the few that are there highly, and each one of them is carrying a dependency burden, then you're going to have a problem. Now, if we go back to the education sector where I'm coming from, there is another thing we are missing out between industry and the training institution. That is the process of induction and on-job training. Interestingly, with the liberalized economy, no employer wants to invest in training. They want to find ready-made goods. That's why there's always this complaint, or then they can't write, and then they can't do this, they can't do the other. In the past, for example, the reason IPA was established was because it was supposed to transition people into the world of work. Now, if you don't want to transition the world of work, what do advanced economies do? One, they have what they call employer-led skills development. What message is the employer giving back to the supply side? And how do they do this strategically? For universities, they create what they call research chairs, okay? That's why all these universities that care for their name have these different research chairs. And what happens? The industry, let's say you're producing soap, and there's something in your production line which is not working very well, and you cannot put your head around it. You say, instead of us investing in R&D directly in the factory, you go to the university, create a research chair, support with whichever minimal means you have to students who are dedicated to solving that problem for you. And when that happens, the students from that come into the industry, but also there is uptake of whatever they have discovered. So what you're having now is people sitting on one side and just blaming one side. It's not, you want ready-made goods. What have you done to invest?
Can I provide information to Prof? I don't
Please
know whether I would be allowed to. You know, the government of Uganda, we signed a contract for the ECOP, the pipeline, and we needed welders. The international companies needed welders. The welders in Uganda, they could not find anybody who could weld, just welding to the international standard for that thing. So they could not employ any of our people.
That is true.
Any of our people. So we had to go and put a beautiful training, how do I call it, establishment in Masindi Oima, where we imported the equipments, established it there, took our young people who had already been in your...
Omara, you're only talking about welding. No, this country doesn't have forklift drivers, it doesn't have plumbers, it doesn't have even people to...
Even tractor drivers.
No, first wait. Yes. Even people to dig and uproot the palms forbid in Karangara. Okay? Why? First, hold on, it is my time.
That is how education system.
Now, no.
That is how education system.
Education system.
No.
Hold on.
Now, hold on.
It is.
Allow me to land.
Yes.
You see, it was a policy matter. There were technical institutions in this country. Who killed them? Why were they all converted into universities? Busitama had agricultural mechanization. Yeah. So, even as much, and this is what I'm saying, I'm not saying the education system is perfect. I'm saying it is taking the bashing for many other things which have gone wrong. Okay. The other things have to be resolved. What are the policy makers knowing? Because we have skills, skills surveys. There is now why you're rolling out the TVET policy. We went competency-based. These people cannot allocate a budget to run competence-based education in this country. I sit on the NCDC board. The budget being allocated to schools to do competence-based education now that we are running in primary schools is expensive. True. It's not lip service. It requires Parliament to appropriate money for that. There's a new TVET policy, which now they have removed those vocationals out of the National Council of Higher Education. And it's talking about employer-led skills development. It has a big budget. It requires funding. So people want to cram kids in schools for the same theoretical thing and then blame the education system. Hell no. The other thing, before I finish, it is a policy issue, it is a funding issue, it is a government issue, it is a strategy issue. So if there are no people to dig palms in Kalangala for the BIDCO to plant, actually we had to import labor from Kenya. Forklift drivers came from Kenya. The best plumbers now come from Tanzania. The welders, I think you're getting them from Mars. We have a labor crisis in this country. And the labor market surveys are there. What are policymakers doing to respond? Universities, even if you're talking about Victoria, it's not going to train welders and people to dig palms of BIDCO. No.
People, allow me, let's
But there is one last thing I also wanted to talk about before I finish. When we talk about labor in this country, we only discuss the rights discourse. It is high time we also talked about the responsibility discourse. You know, in some countries, you can either choose to value the workers and give them all the rights they have. In other places, you also have to empower the employer to be able to offload labor which is not productive. Now, in this country, we have also decided to address one side and not look into that. That's why you talk about supermarkets that have been robbed into bankruptcy, or you establish something. So we also have a problem on that side, which also needs addressing. So it's a holistic problem, not just the education system. That's a cheap way of explaining.
Professor, I'm going to come back to that.
Let's get serious. It's a parliamentary issue.
Alfred from Kasese says he's watching the show, and then someone says, Timothy, thank you for the show. I have an issue with the statistics given by Honorable Captain Mukula, who is evading questions on unemployment. According to the NRM statistics, we have over 20 million members, and I'm guessing most of them are above 18. What does that mean for 80% of the population to get into the workforce? NRM should answer the question of unemployment and stop giving us excuses of wars, okay? Thank you very much. NRM party.
But it happened.
Party. Good evening, Timothy. Thank you for the show. My name is Christopher from Chengera.
History.
I strongly disagree with Captain Mike Mukula on the inherited failures of the state. The fact that that the government before failed to deliver services, it does not mean that they should also fail. There is need for collective responsibility of the NRM for the last 40 years, especially now that citizens are just at survival. Okay. Someone says it's really sad about Rajiv, and he was a pillar to the family. This is Peter Sunday. He also talks about unemployment. The curriculum's revision is one of the strategies, so the skilling of programs of the people there needs to happen, and support from Parliament. Lastly, salutations to the panel. The doctors and Honorable Mike Mukula, he does not need to have a flag to know that the questions need to be answered. I am Nicholas from Bukasa in Muyenga. Okay, let's leave the messages. There are quite many there. Let's take a quick break before we break out into education.
Education system.
Ino internet when you can make izungirizi ate kamera ya yolumamyo banange eriandaka kubongo buno mugano gwenyini funa kabodi supakati ku nsimbi ezisaliddwako ng'otandika kusinyisa emitwalo 49 zokka usasule mpola sinsi 833 buli lunaku weewangulira omugano gwa kabodi supa okuva ku MTN weefunire gibbi 2 eza data wa MTN buli mwezi okumala emyezi 8 weegambulire kabodi supa katikati okuva ku dduuka lya MTN wonna mu ggwanga. Everywhere you go, MTN ekolera wansi w'amateeka ga UCC.
Hey, Kajambo. Mukasa. Where are you going with the family? Mugina kudigidamu? Oh no. We are on our way to the polling station. The Electoral Commission is displaying the National Voters Register. And I need to make sure my name is on it. And Sophie here wants to confirm her voter details. We are all warming up for elections. Okay? What about these young men? I can see you. These ones are no longer boys. They are now men. Last election, they were too young to vote. But now they are ready to vote.
Mukasa, you have really inspired me. Now let me also go home and pick my wife so that we can check the details in the register. Okay. See you on the polling station.
The National Voters Register will be displayed at your polling station from 25th April to 15th May 2025. Please do not miss this chance to confirm your polling station and your voter details. Report the dead for removal from the register and those who appear more than once. Every vote matters. This message is brought to you by the Electoral Commission of Uganda.
The government's core mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project that answers somebody's question.
For the past 20 weeks, the front bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice, and commerce.
When you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers, you bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda chairs. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport.
If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Now airing every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
Here on Behind the Headlines, my name is Timothy Nyangweso. The conversation still goes on behind the headlines, but we will not tell you what happened behind these headlines. In front of the headlines. I'm going to make sure that he says it before.
Yes, let him bring it.
In the studio, I'm joined by Professor Sarah Sali, Dr. Fred Muhumza, Honorable Mara Paul, Professor Lawrence Muganga, and Honorable Captain Mike Mukula. We're discussing critical issues, especially as the looming elections come. These are issues that need to be addressed by any political party cutting across the divide because our country needs to move forward. Very patent messages coming through before I get to Honorable Mukula to respond to some of the things there. Before I get to Honorable,
yes,
Professor had something to say.
Yeah.
Honorable Mara had said it.
Yes.
And Professor...
Honorable Mukula shouldn't be diverted to the politics. He was developing a very practical
yeah,
thing.
And I want him to develop that. But let me read these two messages. Good evening, Timothy. If countries with low unemployment are those stuffed with barren women, there are no countries with populations that are growing and unemployed, that unemployment is low. Finally, remind him if 500 plus girls were leaving Uganda daily to go to the Middle East, the unemployment figures would even be worse. Timothy, university focuses on education whose single role is to share knowledge. What we require is training with focuses on knowledge, skills, and attitude. Okay? Benjamin continues and says, nobody gets paid for what you know, but what you can do.
Yes.
Close to 85% of the universities need to replace the we're replacing technical institutions, just like Professor was saying.
Yes.
Thank you for the program. I'm Deo from Masindi, working with Masindi District Farmers Association. I do not agree with those statistics and have a number of questions. Does being illiterate stop a youth from being economically productive? Exactly. We are talking of youth unemployment. The professors tell us what skills they have at their youth stages, which education system they took, honorable skillfulness and trade at his youth stage. Chinese are just highly skilled but have less education. Could we have hosted youth in this on this discussion? Okay, the quality of youth matters. Let us embrace informal sector, skill enhancement and training. Thank you very much. He talks about welding. This is a Kamumpa Carol from IU University. Kindly ask Honorable Mukula, why ministers fail to give us internship programs? Okay, thank you for being honest with asking about internships. That's really critical. Keep the questions coming. We'll be responding to them. 0709 60 25 92. That's our WhatsApp number, and we'll be getting to X to discuss some of those answers there. Honorable Mukula, you were building a point, but let me get Professor. Yes, you had something burning.
Honestly, it was burning in a sense that...
when Professor Sarah was talking.
When Professor Sarah was really telling us that, oh, the education sector is great and...
No, I didn't say that. Yes. Please, no misrepresentation. No misrepresentation.
Okay,
I remember what I said.
Let me represent you.
Yes. She said it is not perfect. Now I'm using great.
She said, and I'll quote Professor very well. She
remember what I said, I'm sober.
That one, education is just a punching bag. The supply is there. The demand needs to be worked on.
Exactly. Yes, that's my point.
She also mentioned that education is not perfect. It is a work in progress. She also mentioned that
the side of policy,
exactly,
the side of funding.
She talked about the competence-based curriculum that needs funding, that needs legislation and policies. She acknowledges.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me begin from there. And at some point I'll agree with her. But you see, Timothy.
Yes.
Let me make an assumption, but you'll realize it is right. From Professor Sar, Professor Mhumuza, I don't know so much about Honorable Mother.
Economist, seasoned banker.
Yeah, okay. And myself.
Professor.
The only person of, like other than, I don't know, but the only of this entire panel, the only person who may own a building on Kampala Road or Jinja Road could be Honorable Captain Mike Mukula. You know why? The professor, us, our education, kind of education, deprived us of that opportunity.
How?
How? We spent so many years cramming so many things that are not useful to us. He spent so much time actually perfecting the trade, doing business, failing, picking himself up, learning how to do it better, and now he's employing so many people, and we are here still talking theory. Okay, our homes, you'll find them in Gayaza, in Nalia, somewhere in Bulenga, Buloba. Okay, he may be in Kololo or Bugorobi, somewhere. That's the education system I'm telling you about. Now let me tell you the danger.
So is that a yardstick by which we should measure?
No, I'm telling you.
Having a building on Kampala Road.
Listen, I'm coming to that.
Listen,
I'm coming to that.
Having a building on Kampala Road, does not guarantee productivity.
Yes.
Sleeping in Kololo Bugolobi does not guarantee unemployment. So
okay,
just elitism.
Okay,
use your litmus test.
No. Just let me ask you. Let me ask you. What do you need to get to those places to get a building in that very place? You need money.
But some people don't want there because
we learned. I mean, we went through. Does not teach us about money.
It does. Maybe.
No. It will teach you biology with an assumption that you will become a doctor and start making what? Money. He started making money when he's still very young. That's the language he understands. So, but let me tell you what is happening with our education system that Professor Sarah is trying to defend. Okay? Again, I'll use all of this, beginning with Timothy yourself, if you have children. To Honorable Mukula, all of us, we have had a child, or we have supported a child in a boarding school. True or false?
True.
Or we have true. Now, we get our kids, we isolate them from society, from the community, from the businesses we do. We lump them somewhere in an artificial prison somewhere for 19 years. They know nothing about business. They know nothing about problems that happen at home. They can't do anything. And then, at the end of the day, when they finish school, you have isolated. You say the workforce begins at what age? 14. Those people know nothing about the what? They are professional dependents. And then, when they finish school, they come back home, continue with their profession to depend. because the education they got was to sit down. Have you ever seen a situation where, sorry to move this, okay, where the system is going to tell you that, Lawrence, today is the examination time. So here is a question paper and an answer sheet. If you finish it, pick another one, okay? We'll give you another one. Put up your hand. Do not talk to Omara. If you talk to Omara, it is criminal. If you talk to Honorable Captain Mike Mukula, you are out of this hall where we're doing an exam. Then you start in a cocoon. You finish 3 hours. You hand it in. You do that very practice for 19 years. The world out there, you are supposed to innovate. When you are innovating, you consult.
Collaborate.
You collaborate. You team up. You solve those problems that you saw because you were part of them. He may give you half the information. You go to Captain Mike Mukula, who has some experience. He tells you, no, don't take that path. You will fail somewhere. Then you divert. But here you have trained a Ugandan child to think that the book is what it is to survive in life. Someone told you that the world no longer needs what we know. It needs what you can do with what you know. That's the problem we have. That's why we don't have welders, because there's no one to train them. But it's not that Ugandans are so stupid to not be educated to become welders or plumbers. No, we don't have people to train them.
Okay. Thank you. Now the stool can go back.
Yes.
Let me come to Honorable Captain Mike Mukula. And the arguments really...
It's the same. The vocational institutions were
also
closed
speaking
down.
to the same thing. But let me come to Honorable Mike Mukula. Honorable, let's put the politics aside. I looked at a number that really alarmed me. If by 2030, this population of young people is going to be bigger by 25%. All factors constant, and wishing the NRM well, if you win the elections, that will be 1 year away from the next election. And this population would have grown by a quarter of what it is in terms of young people. You have Vision 2040. You have beautiful languaging, securing a future, industrialization. Let's get practical. How do we resolve this problem before we get a boom of 25% in less than 4 years?
You know, Dr. Mganga here was talking about practice. And practice makes you perfect. Issues you're talking about is theory versus practice. And that is the quagmire that Uganda is engaged in.
Yes.
And you'll find that for me, when I was growing up in Soroti City, now, and I'll give you one very practical experience. My mother, a single mother, used to sell marua and waraji. But she would also wake up at 5 a.m. and give me mandazi, chapati, sumbusas to go and sell in Soroti Bus Park.
Exactly.
Rayamtula buses. And I want to tell you, one time, as I was selling at a Sunia, the one the Muslims use pilau for.
Sania.
Sania.
Yes.
I used to have all newspapers and a spoke, the one of a bicycle.
Yes.
For hygiene.
Yes.
Put in a newspaper, give it to a passenger in a bus.
Yes.
Now, one of the afternoons, we were very hungry with my friend, the late Okwalinga, now Fred. He said, why don't we eat some? We're very hungry.
Yeah.
And I knew the problems. He told me, let's eat. How can we be hungry when we are carrying food? Quick forward. I want to tell you that we ate. We ate.
Yes.
When I got back home, my mother, who was a teacher, may her soul rest in eternal peace, had a book, and she was able to go through an audit.
Yes.
How much have you brought? How much have you sold? How much is cash? She said there's a shortage. And I told her, Mom, you told me to be honest. We were hungry. We ate some of the chapatis and mandazis. I was flogged. I was beaten very badly. And she told me, never eat your capital. That's where you get money to buy more wheat flour, sugar, and all this meat that we use in order for you to sell and earn school fees. What's the lesson here? That was lesson number one for me as a businessman. Never to consume or eat your capital. Never deplete
From
it.
a mother.
From a mother.
Family is important.
If my mother had not been there, I would not be a businessman today.
Yes.
Family.
That was practical from
Meanwhile,
family.
other people's kids are in a boarding school.
Family.
And I know, Professor, you have been a champion.
Enjoying a bed.
But please allow the
But where was her mother?
Now,
Where did the mother train?
let's
to
go
learn
back
that?
to more practical. Quickly, fast forward. We built one of the largest fuel tanks in the country, Mahadi Infra. 71 million liters, two ships, 2 barges. Each barge carries 4.5 million liters. The president came and launched that. And we carry equivalent, one barge, equivalent of 200 trailers. The barge is longer than Nambole Stadium. It's 123 meters by 18 meters. What does that tell you? When we were building these barges and welding the tanks and the pipeline, the one Honorable Mara was talking about, we didn't have welders. The whole of East Africa, we couldn't get. We had to bring Chinese, 163 Chinese, 321 Indians to come and do the welding and train the local people. Some of those may be the ones in ECOP now. What's the lesson here? Our schools, Kiambogo University, which is more science-based, we should be having these, does not train. 2, we do not have a single polytechnic in this country, like Germany has, like India has.
But we eliminated them.
Like we have in China.
We had it.
So it is important, and I agree with Professor Muganga, that the market there is asking for a certain
kind of skills.
Skill.
Yes.
But we cannot bring that output. What are we training? Conflict resolution degree.
Social workers.
Social workers. We are training fellows who have done religious studies, fellows who have done history, and so on and so forth. That is not for this market.
Yeah.
What we need to do is review, and I'm happy that Honorable Amanya Muchega recently presented a curricular presentation, a reform on our education scale. What I think we need to do, and that's what I would like to tie this to, what we call the growth pillars. The growth pillars are global, in that you do not have to reinvent. And let me tell you, in the growth pillars, the one Professor Muganga was talking about is, for example, the green economy.
Yeah.
Okay? And climate resilience. Those are factors that drive renewable energy, what you call smart agriculture. These are factors that drive the economy. Digital transformation, that's the second one. Look at that, digital transformation. Artificial intelligence.
Correct.
This is the area now we must focus on.
True.
That's where the young people are getting on. We're talking about 5G and generation next. That is what we're talking about, the e-commerce, digital finance. Are we together? The smart manufacturing. I have in my factory for manufacturing syringes, I have robots.
Yes.
Good.
Now, those robots are smart manufacturing. The third component, which is very important, is human capital development. That's a growth pillar number 3. These are global. Education reform, what you call STEM, technical, vocational, and these are key in driving the economy. Gender inclusion. Then you go to the 4th, innovative and knowledge economies. This is what you call 4th pillar in the growth of the economy. R&D, the one Professor Omara was talking about. Research and development.
I'm going to be one, not yet professor, but
yes.
we'll be there.
If you look at South Korea,
Yes.
South Korea has got the largest per capita PhD holders, where there's areas of focus, R&D. That's why you find that South Korea is one of the fastest growing economies. It grew from, by 1962, South Korea was at the same level with Uganda.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
until the new president, what you call Young, came in and brought what you call reform in the economy, realigned the economy to growth. The fifth is infrastructure and urbanization, smart cities.
Yeah.
You need to ensure that in every city you adapt, because these are areas that interlock with the young people. Wi-Fi,
Yes.
which is locked in every city. Because this is now what helps young people to move quickly. They don't have to buy data. This is how you work a smart city into. Modern transport, rail, ports, logistics, digital infrastructure. This is part of it. 6 is resilient value chains and industrialization. And this is where local manufacturing, agro-industrialization, I was talking about Bugisu the other day when I wrote to the president, that Robusta copy.
Yes.
You
Arabic.
saw that in
Yeah,
my
so.
Robusta copy. We have had the same traditional economy you're talking about,
Yes.
exporting raw beans and donating this wealth to Germany, to France. Germany goes in and repackages, processes this coffee and exports to Russia. In this gap now we have where there is an embargo on Russia, we should take advantage of that and export this Robusta to Russia and earn more money. This is what you talk about value chain, financial inclusion, and capital access. Then you have geopolitical stability and global partnerships. These areas, global partnerships, also draw what we call FDIs. Now, how do we integrate the economies? And that's why Uganda now is moving towards integrating with the group of Russia,
BRICS.
the BRICS. That integration, that's how you widen the market. We are talking about East African Common Market. The biggest investment we can do is to trade with South Sudan, trade with Kenya, and so on and so forth, and avoid these artificial trade barriers.
But Honorable Captain Mike Mukula, for us to resolve, and we're talking solutions, what is our comparative advantage? We are in everything.
We don't have.
No, he's talking about the ecosystem.
Yes, I
And
understand.
that
I'm
will
talking
create
about the
employment.
ecosystem.
Because
the narrative, let me take you, my brother, the narrative here is that how do we integrate this Vision 2040 and all the other areas that we're talking about, which are strategies, to what you call aligning the economy to the most important part of our human of a nation, and that's human capital. That's the one professor was talking about. This is what will answer the unemployment equation and the quagmire we face.
Exactly.
They are very beautiful things and with a practical lesson. Honorable, how do these translate and trickle down?
Investment.
Now,
funding.
to trickle this down, to me, I look at it this way. We need to go into reforms. These reforms, and I want to tell you, you can't reinvent the wheel. The ideas that have grown Singapore, that have grown what you call the tiger countries,
Asian tigers.
the Asian tigers. What has changed South Korea from an LDC to now the 8th fastest growing economy or largest economy in the world? This is the answer. And that's why I talked about what you call the triggers of economic growth.
Okay, thank you. Professor Lawrence, let me come to you. You really tickled our minds when you talked about the traditional economy and the disruptive economy that is coming there. We are in coffee, we talk about agriculture, it is the backbone, we're still looking for that backbone. Then we talk
Food
about
basket.
we're a food basket.
When you produce no food.
The fintech and all these things. What are those 1, 2, 3 things as a country that we can harness or leverage as comparative advantage to prepare for such a disruptive economy?
Yeah, thank you. Now, I want you to consider 2 things. Coffee, for example, in this country. And I'm not saying we should go for coffee. I'm just giving an example. Coffee, its market cap, global, is about $500 billion.
Yes.
Okay? So that means for it to become 1 trillion, either the world needs to be compelled to drink more coffee, oh, we have to give birth to more children, and the developed world that is buying coffee is not giving birth. That's why we are taking the trophy of being the youngest nation. All right? So meaning, that's not, it's great to grow coffee, and I'm saying, and I'm not discouraging anyone to grow coffee. It's great. We can capitalize on that. It's good. But we also know that the market cap is 500 what? Billion. So, but there is an economy that we have neglected, the digital economy, which is $17 trillion. And we are not actively participating into that economy. I'll give you an example. You talked about job disappearing. It is just the beginning. Why? Captain Mike Mukula has given us the pillars. And I loved actually what he stated. All those things. They are into the digital economy. Now, there is AI. If you look at, pay attention, you're a very good researcher, all of us here. If you look at it's called the Jobs of the Future report by the World Economic Forum 2025. It is stating that the new jobs by 2030 that are going to be inspired by artificial intelligence are going to be 170 million. Okay, no any other sector that has actually ever projected to give us such jobs. But it is also, those are new jobs inspired by artificial intelligence. But it is also prophesizes doom. It says while those new ones are being created, 92 million jobs will disappear. And Uganda is one of those countries that are creating graduates, young people, to fit in the category of jobs that are doing what?
Going to
disappearing. So therefore, if I was actually advising NRM, if Captain Mike Mukula here hired me, I would tell him one thing: digitize this country as fast as possible. And I'll come back to what Professor Sarah said: digitize this country. How? You talk about once you digitize this country, you are no longer. It will take time, 5 years, 10 years, but everything now will become like a language we speak. That means you will no longer look for jobs in Uganda. Someone will simply have a laptop sit under a tree as long as there is connection, and they will work anywhere in the world. And what we care for is the money that will come to our country in dollars, not Ugandan shillings. So how do you do that? I don't think NRM has failed to get money. Let me even not talk about NRM. Say government, okay? And when we say government, sometimes people start pointing at people who sit in different portfolios. No, we are all what? Government. Because why are we government? If you think you are not government, you are the taxpayer who pays that money that government is doing what? So we are part of government. So we should tell them how to use this money properly. I don't think that government can fail to have 30 billions, for example, and go to Captain Mike Mukula is good with industries and everything, and other people. Go to Namamve, set up something, bring Chinese, since we can't do these things, and they start assembling simple gadgets like tablets, like 3 million gadgets. Develop, Professor Muhumza talked about strategy, okay? Now, come up with a strategy of one child, one gadget, okay? What does that mean? It means every child who is going to school anywhere in this country must have a gadget. Now, NCDC materials on this gadget. Content, teachers, whatever content on this gadget. Now, someone is going to ask, where is the internet to power that up? You are going to go, don't follow, I don't want to mention names of telecommunication companies here, but you're going to allow Starlink internet technology to come in this country. Why? Because they don't need optic fiber.
Satellite.
To be moved anywhere. That's too expensive to reach every corner of this country. Get the satellite internet to just drop anywhere. Captura, you have it. In Karamoja, you have it. Everywhere you think you can have it. Just give them a license. Then you're going to ask power. Make sure the gadget you're developing is solar powered. Okay? Or there's some other technology they use, but you develop it, it is self-charging as long as there is the sun anywhere. So now what you're going to do is that you are going to develop a nation that is tech savvy, that is moving with the times we are in today. So Professor Muhumza talked, I think Honorable Mara talked about the human capital developed like Singapore.
Yes.
Now you're going to have these people
Yes.
of AI and everything seeing us as the able people where they can do things because we have qualified people.
Your track capital.
We start attracting that. They hire our people. We speak very good English in this country.
Yes.
Okay. Then we have the technical abilities to support everything, and you see the money we are going to save. Every school will no longer need a library. Every school in the country will no longer need a library because the library now, every child will go with the library at home. Every child will have a tutor in form of an AI tutor on their tablet. You will save now the number of teachers you need. Every school will not need an ICT lab because the gadget they have, you simply call the class together, now we have an ICT whatever room. So these things are doable and they are affordable. We only need to go back to what Professor Sarah said, members of parliament.
And that's where I want to come to.
Yes. Allow me just 1 minute. Members of parliament, please, we are begging you. The people you represent are not just cows or houses or animals. These are people, parents with children. These people must go to school, must have decent health. The education they have must be relevant. So when the Ministry of Education tables a budget, there are three things we don't debate here. We don't have to debate because they are non-partisan and they are public goods. Health, education, defense, or security. Those things, even if we need 20% of the budget to fund education, please do so because our country depends on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mara, you are now in the hot spot. You sit
like
on the
Professor
budget.
Sarah.
You sit on the budget, you sit on the finance.
Yeah.
Come end of June, we'll be discussing this budget, how it has been passed by you.
Yeah.
We have... But I have a question. Honorable Captain, would he hire me after that?
No, you would lose a job because he's into robotics.
Yes.
He's going to run on robotics.
Yes. Honorable Mara, these challenges are on legislation, on financing. Yes, we would go to... Why are we failing to put our money where our mouth is and where, our cow is that can give us milk?
As Professor Sarah mentioned.
And sorry, Honorable, when you look at the number of 50% or 55% between 0 and 17, in 5-10 years, these are going to be in the job market.
Exactly.
So really, why aren't you putting money to solve a future problem now?
No, I think as Professor Sarah mentioned, I think there was a government policy that basically took away the polytechnics that we used to have. Some of the agricultural training institutes, hands-on, that used to be there, were converted into universities and so forth. So I think now we have realized we were creating more of academicians, other than practical people that should actually go into the industry and do stuff. I think Honorable Mukula gave us a very interesting story of your mom. And here she was an educated woman. So which actually means that even if you have low level of education, if somebody comes in to unhold you, you can actually learn something, especially in our world of agriculture, and do something. So government has to reverse its policy and ensure that the TVETs, which Professor Sarah has talked about, is properly funded. And you need to know that in our constitutional democracy, it is a presidential system. So the president guides most of the time. The budget is also for the president. He's actually the substantive minister of finance. What we normally do through PACOB with Dr. Mumuza here and a couple of other people, we provide overall strategic guidance. The president will actually then look at the documents that has been prepared, and then he would set his priorities. And as you mentioned, I think defense takes a good portion of our budget. Health, as we have mentioned, is key. education is also key. So we
are those political or economic priorities?
It basically covers human capital.
They are national priorities.
These are national priorities. But if you look at education, what we basically need to ask ourselves, it's not that the money is not given to education. A lot of money is given to education, but the question is, what kind of education are we investing our money? Because we should actually be saying, not everybody is going to go to university. A majority of people actually would go and get certificates in electrical engineering, certificates in ICT.
Let me just, just give you some information here.
Yes.
I have now in Mbuya.
Yes.
Utalii Polytechnic Institute.
Yes.
One of the areas we teach people, young people,
yes,
is to repair these phones.
Yes.
30 million telephones over in the country.
Yes.
And most of them are from China.
Yes.
Now, you notice that you drop a telephone, something goes wrong with it. And you need somebody to fix it.
Yes.
Now, we are training young people.
Yes.
And they don't need much. They don't need a lot of capital.
Yeah.
All they need is just small tools. Exactly. And all he needs to do is pick a phone and look at your phone, open it up, fix it, give it to you. You'll earn more money than 10 matatu drivers, more than the bodas.
Exactly.
Now, this is what we teach our children in this polytechnic.
Yes.
And there are many more other areas
that
we'll talk about, and I would invite you to come and see what we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Timothy, I think we need to have a review. I know that Honorable Manya Mushega has given
the Education Policy Review Commission.
Yes, the Education Policy Review Commission has presented their report to the President. I hope it captures the challenges that we have talked about this evening, so that we have more polytechnics than having a myriad of universities all over that is producing basically nothing. And as Parliament, as government, working with the executive, we now need to make sure the money for education goes to some of these polytechnics to create people who have skills and knowledge for the industry. Basically, so that when we're talking about welders or nurses that can go in ICU, we have people who are trained for purpose. So we need to rethink this thing and reprioritize our budget within the same Ministry of Education. Let me look at, I think, one of the policy changes that I think has gone amok. The issue of paying science teachers more money than art teachers. If you look at what these people are doing, okay, they have been cutting a frog. They will say, this is a frog, this is a leg of a frog, this is the head of a frog. They will pick a caterpillar, this is the caterpillar you grow. This is the body of a woman, this is the body of a man. Nothing changes. There is no contribution. I am happy with the professors are here, what we call in the cutting edge of knowledge. They are not at the cutting edge of knowledge, where research and development is happening. That is where we need to put our money. So we have given a big section of our teachers, the scientists, money, and we left the artists without anything. And that has destroyed actually our education system.
Yes, exactly.
And as Parliament, we recommended that actually there should be consideration so that the same amount of money, let me read the Constitution by the Uganda Constitution of 1995, recognizes the right to equal pay for work of equal value. So you cannot actually say they are the same teachers, they are grade 5 or they are university student teachers, and this one should be paid more for the same work and like this one. So there should be a total review of education system, and the art teachers are there. They're about to go on a strike. They go to the same supermarket. They go to the same village market. So that consideration, such a policy should be really taken away. And then we look at a more robust, which is tiered to the needs of the industry, that provide future jobs for our young people. So the old system that we have had must be revamped, and then we focus on it afresh.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Professor Mhumza.
Dr. Mhumza.
Dr. Mhumza.
The appointing authority, my papers are in front of me.
You better bring them.
I know their budget issues, so I'm not bringing them. I would rather take them to Captain Mukwe.
Dr. Mhumza, a gentleman that spoke during the Labour Day, and he really made quite something that was laughable, where he said, you know, everyone has come here, professor, doctor, and they called me doctor also. But I never went to secondary school. I learned welding, I did this. And it was very practical for us to learn from. You mentioned a jobless growth. Professor Muganga has also mentioned the same thing. 170 jobs, about 93 million going to go away. Looking at about 80 million jobs there. How do we prepare for that, one? But also two, how do we balance the traditional and this disruptive economy that is coming as a country?
Well, there are two things. We have already looked at what kind of jobs are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence. As I said here, I paid for my water bill while we were sitting here. So it's not even artificial intelligence.
No.
It is as obvious as that.
Automation.
That automation is coming and you need to be looking into that. He has already told you he has robots.
Yes.
Robots are not going to go into R&D. But once you come down to make the drug, there the robots can take over that process.
True.
You used to have conveyor belts, literally moving a car vehicle chain or body, and then there will be guys to spray it. So the only thing that had been replaced in the human chain was now the vehicle was moving by a conveyor belt. But now even the robots will spray it, fit in the engine. So those routine things are certainly going to go out of the system. So we need to be already aligning up and advising young people, like his mother advised him, never eat capital.
Never eat your capital.
So even I'm sitting and watching my children, I'm saying, okay, you're going to do mathematics, you're going to do history, but where does the future of that one go? Even as you train children in IT, there is IT that is going to go artificial intelligence, but now we have hackers. You really want now to train this young man to be on the other side of the hackers.
Ethical hacker.
Because we're still going to need somebody to keep the hackers out of the system.
Correct.
So you want to be looking at, you are in the IT space, but
To provide the firewall.
What exactly are you doing? You're going to get these CT scans. A lot of that routine work, artificial intelligence will do it. Because every time a result comes out, doctors have algorithms of what decision they have been doing. So some artificial intelligence will say, in a similar case, like lawyers' rule cases, in a similar result of this nature, the prescription was this. So you find the doctor's work, it's not that the entire doctor person will go out, but at least the work is going to be lightened. So you want to be looking into that future space. Now, there we are not going to chase technology. And this is why really, for me, the data is not speaking to our realities. We might all be looking at gloom of training and vocational formal training. This country has thousands of motor vehicle mechanics who have literally trained on the job.
Exactly.
So there is a lot of skilling and training happening out there. The young fellows who are making chapatis, they're earning a living much better than quite a number of professional fellows who have trained in universities and polytechnics. Where did they train how to make a chapati? So we shouldn't be ignoring that, but because our data system is itself leaning towards formal, and I hear people say, we must drive informality. Informality is not your problem. These fellows who wash cars, every car they wash is 20,000, some of them more. And they have that cadet wash. What skill do they need? And there is somebody who repairs it. There is a whole ecosystem around that washing bay that is literally not being captured by our data because we are looking into formality.
Some information, Doctor. The welders you're talking about, we are talking about standardization.
Exactly.
So what kind of standards are they measuring themselves against? So you find somebody just wears a goggle and
but that's what is
needed. They're repairing cars and living their jobs.
To weld the bicycle in the village.
Even to weld a car.
You know these borders, there are so many of them. But every time I pass through the villages, you'll find people repairing them. They didn't come to Makerere for training, they didn't even went to Chambok. But they have learned on the job and they're doing a decent thing. And they're earning there. So we need to rethink, do we understand our economy? And how do you support such people? But because we don't even have statistics about them. And that, for me, is a problem that we can't move. I'll give you one simple example. I had my vehicle, the odometer couldn't work. I took it to the most sophisticated. They brought in computers. They failed. I took it to Toyota. Toyota people said, this is a 2005 model. We need to make an order back in Japan. It will cost you 2 million. I didn't have it. But I had a problem now. What speed am I on? The police has a gun. Me, I don't know what speed I am on.
Yes.
Then somebody say, there is a guy in Mulago. Mulago roundabout. This is
Juakali people.
The guy said, I will come to Makerere and fix it for you right in the parking. The speedometer worked. Now, fellows couldn't do it. So there is a lot of labor training and skilling. This economy is still informal. And we're not about to jump into South Korea, North Korea. Fine, we can say by Vision 2040, maybe we'll be halfway or quarter way. But what do we have as of now? We should not ignore those realities of the people who are cooking good food, and we go downtown and eat it. Chigere can't be cooked by the chef in, I don't know, was trained, I don't know where. Sheraton. But we'll need them as well. College. He's talking about people repairing phones. Even those who are repairing phones, in a basic way. Yes. How do you support them as well, without necessarily a polytechnic? So I think we have all these kinds of things, and people sometimes want to steal money. Skilling Ugandans, write a project. World Bank has financed it. It is all over, and then you go in there. What are you skilling people to do?
Exactly.
Some fellows are rich catching insane. Do you know where they pick the skill? It's not an easy thing. But those guys, I see insane and they're coming and they earn their money. It is seasonal, off they go. Go back and talk to people who cross the rail. Some of them, it is insane. So let's not ignore the basics that of where we are. Understand how we can support them. We in the academic space, I go in and tell my students, walk into that Nakawa market, walk into that Tintale market, walk into that Wandegeya market. There is a woman there who has been in that market for the last 15 years.
Yes.
She doesn't have a business case written out, or a business plan, or a strategic plan. The mere fact she has been in that market for 15 years, has educated her children, has built herself a house. That is a very good business manager. She may never have gone to school, but she knows where to buy from, what to sell, when to sell. Go to MTN. They told the people borrowing money between 20 and 40,000. Between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. There are millions of them borrowing money, billions moving that time. By 11 a.m., all of them have paid back. This is more pay, more cash. Now, all we did was to make sure there is the legal requirement to allow more cash to happen. As an academic, I'm so happy and proud to have been part of that process.
Very good.
To have put that law in place. Because we're picking it from Kenya Mshwari. Thanks to the central bank here, they said, let's try it out. But who is really going to check whether this person is credible, it is unsecured? So it's a small amount, and the algorithm will know whether these people are going to pay or not to pay. This is what digital application. And it is helping thousands and thousands of people borrow, run their business, and move on. Thank you, MTN. It is one of the fastest growing loan book outside from your banks. I think it has moved to 1.4 trillion.
Actually, it handles more money than the bank.
It's small amounts, and somebody can borrow several times. There is no human being. So the jobs are being lost, artificial intelligence and algorithms, but they have created more opportunities downtown. And for me, that's really the economic growth we need to bring on the table.
Professor.
Yes, please.
I think yours is twofold. One is on mindset. We especially are thinking in tradition. Professor Muganga was saying 19 years of school. And how do we have that mindset shift, especially for a disruptive economy that is coming? But also, secondly, how do we turn our challenge of unemployment into an opportunity?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. First, I would like to appreciate the fact that we have all converged on one thing, that we need an ecosystem. That we cannot only sync the education system. With the education system goes infrastructure, goes the internet, goes the polytechnic, goes the issues of policy, goes issues of funding. So it can't be one thing to be bashed. Because within this are so many things that are intertwined. So the supply and demand side have to work together. So you're talking about mindset, and there's something which we shouldn't lose, that Captain Mike Mukula talked about his mom. And one, it is the role of family. Why is every child rushing to university to be a doctor? It's because at dinner time conversations.
Actually, you've mentioned that Dr. Clark, Ian Clark, wrote an article about how he left medicine to go into coffee. And
Yeah, so all the children are sitting on the dinner time the dinner table and they are being told they must get degrees, they must do medicine, they must do engineering, they shouldn't do history, they shouldn't do that. So even a child who can't cope is now being pushed. The schools you're talking about, parents are looking for schools that are going to generate 4 at P7. If a child gets 6, that child might get a beating. Then they look for a school which is going to do 6 in 6.
8 in 8.
8 in 8. They are looking for these things without even any regard of what is the child more competent in, without any regard of what you're saying of, if I am a doctor, but my sister or brother is a barber, might my child have to learn something from there? Children are not having time to even learn how to wash plates, go to the villages.
A son of one of my barbers is a medical doctor.
Yes.
How did he educate him?
Yeah. But also, a son of a medical doctor can become a successful barber if they have the skills. And that's why at NCDC, we are talking about anticipated skills needs. So we are talking about what will be the skills requirement of 5 years, of 10 years, of 20 years. Some of these things may not be what we are doing. And the other thing, so the mindset has to begin with the families, but also the institutions have a role to play. And that's why I think many of the universities, at least Makerere, has started going the way of the innovation hubs. Of course, we have one big innovation hub, which we want to multiply, but what happens in there is to partner students with people who are doing things, but are not necessarily scholarly. So if children want to learn how to make shoes, and there are people in Chikoni who make shoes, how do you allow people in Chikoni to come and make use of that innovation hub so that the Makerere students who might find this skill interesting learn from them without paying fees, but they're sharing space? So there's a lot of group work. Actually, that's why I said universities have innovated themselves too much. So it's not that kids are actually learning in isolation. There are a lot of these. Every month, if you go through Makerere, whether it's Julius Nyerere, whether it is Youth Expos, where kids are showcasing, and I mean not kids, university students and the other youth, are showcasing what they are doing. That whole Pool Road becomes a carnival. What does this show you? Our younger people are doing things. They desire to be different. There are other entities, okay, we appreciate the Polytechnic, but there are other people who have put these hubs in, not rural areas, in suburbs, the fundi boats, the whatever. They are training kids to have skills. So you require now the family to know that instead of my child watching TV during the holidays, let me take that child to fundi boat to learn how to play around with gadgets, to learn how to do that. Let me take others to tailoring school. And by the way, many families are already doing that. It is an issue of means. Poorer families may not be able to do that, but many families are putting their children through volunteer schemes. And there are so many volunteer schemes in this country to pick a skill. The way Nigerian universities do it differently is that the universities also have skills that a child must do. So you can be doing medicine, but can you do either woodwork, dressmaking, hairdressing, or learning how to make an agbada? Because they know that a doctor in Nigeria will take approximately 7 years to ever get a job. But while you're waiting for a job of a medic, at least you can survive tailoring. So mindset change has to occur always, but it depends largely on what has the child been fed on, because children come to school trying to meet the dreams of their parents. So what are the parents looking for? So there's the level of mindset change of the parents, mindset change in the institutions, but also mindset change of the policymakers. And that's why for me, I came here to one of the things to say is we need to actually just get out of the common narrative, because everyone is blaming education, we all jump on that bandwagon. Because as you have seen, the ecosystem is bigger than that. So you have that. And so the issue of infrastructure, the issues Captain Mike Mukula articulated, are some of the things actually you need to go. They are the issues countries that have developed have had to go to. Yes. They are teaching the same things we are teaching, okay? They will teach American history of the 17th century, but their kids will find jobs selling sausages during summer. That's why you cannot find American kids leaving the country during summer, because they are working. Why are they working? The economy works. They have a big economy. So it's not that children are stuck refusing to work. Many of our people are doing jewelry, they are cooking, they are doing whatever. Each time we make expos, they come and showcase. And they do not necessarily have to be Makerere students. It's youth who have something to show. Come, you're given 3 days, Pool Road is yours. People buy, others showcase. So those things are occurring. So you need infrastructure. If we can get what Captain Mike Mukula listed very well, luckily enough you are in the NRM, you're in the top, I think you're in SEC. Yes. Please take those things there, infrastructure, employment, investment, entrepreneurship, that will work. There's one thing, I did my PhD in Edinburgh, and one thing that I loved about the Scottish system at the time is they had the Minister for Higher Education was also the Minister for Trade and Industry. So it was Minister for Higher Education, Trade and Industry. These things were in the same docket. Because higher education is where people catapult into the trade and industry. So by putting them in the same docket, you could easily get the forward-backward linkages together. So the minister sat in the same docket of trade and industry and saw what was needed there and sent back feelers into the institutions, and then they responded. And by higher education institutions, we are not just talking about universities. They, of course, have a lot of polytechnics, they have a lot of volunteer schemes, and they have a lot of many things. But they're also struggling with the issues we are struggling. That their graduates cannot afford 3 meals a day. They cannot even afford a flat. They're in a box where you hold both ways and you fit. So you do, and there's a lot of house shares because of that. So all countries are facing this challenge. Yes. But how do we get to go? So then the next thing comes to how do we turn this challenge into an opportunity? First of all is to appreciate where we are, that it is a stage in the demographic transition. The alternative is to say let everyone be barren so that we don't have many people. Alternative is to say let us not educate people because they're coming out to float. But how about if we implemented Captain Mike Mukula's growth models, that ecosystem, so that the youth who is coming out of whether a university or a polytechnic or even dropping out at P4 or even not going to school, because if you look at Freire's model of the pedagogy of the oppressed, these are people who are not necessarily don't have to be educated to be successful. But what skills are you going with into the job market? I've talked here about going to Chiembe. If you go to Chiembe there's a whole production line. Yeah. You'll think the suits are coming from abroad. So you have, if we cared to look, and that's why not Captain Mukula, Professor Muhumuza has talked about what are we measuring? Why aren't we paying attention to informality? There's a lot happening in this country. Yeah. What is aiding it to work is that the economy is growing. And as they are aided to work and they can trade on mobile money and they can do all these things, then they are able, because a lot of things now we don't go downtown, we buy. You go on Facebook, you go on whatever, you see what you need, you begin a chat, they bring it to you in the office. You pay 2,000 shillings for delivery. At home. Yes. They even deliver at home. So all of this, so that IT, that ecosystem is very important to aid this. And when it aids this and we have reduced taxation, there will be opportunities created and some people will get into the job market. But another thing of the policy matter, not everyone needs to be a graduate. If you look at the metrics globally, graduate education should be 13% of the population. The rest are these other alternatives. And that's why like even Germany invests more in those and limits the number that goes to universities. So these are largely policy matters. But now where every district is demanding for an ethnic university, if you haven't given us a university, you don't like us, and we are all teaching the same thing, producing these are policy and political matters. So I think let us continue focusing on the ecosystem, and then we shall see which forward-backward linkages we send.
Thank you. Let me read some feedback. I'm Tenyua Grace from Kaliro District East. I do appreciate the debate and all the panelists. It's true that the rate of unemployment in Uganda is very high, but even with the thinking of employed, they're paid poorly. Take an example of government primary school teacher, 470,000. Do we expect the teacher to produce good work and with that kind of salary? Honorable Mike Mukula should respond to this and prioritize education sector and remove all that is causing segregation in it there. Okay? Thank you. This is Muzei Nzabalinda Elias, retired health worker in Kamwenge. Since colonial times, the children are brought up sitting upright on a chair and need to go to the university. And he continues to talk about, I wish our president can bring in a Latin way of job creating and training centers. You ask people in Gulu, in the central market, where their onions come from, they will tell you they come from Kenya. Central region, about the matoke, they will tell you they come from Western Uganda. A lot of idle land, people have a mentality that is only for jobs and they need to sit and do those jobs. I advise some of them to be able to get into the private sector. Looking for bribes of 7 million, okay, quite lengthy there. Mark says he is grateful for the explanation by Professor Sarah. Government should pick a leaf from it. And I agree with the Professor Sarah. Education is not the challenge, but the lack of clear national strategy. Everyone is operating in survival mode for the schools plus the unfavorable business environment there. The private sector businesses would actually work better if there were tax holidays or exemptions there. Lastly, I am Caleb from Kanungu. The key problem is the UN employment growth is the education system. How can a graduate be expected to change the environment, which his instructor or his professor cannot even make a Nibo or a Panado? Any other item in relation to that department, I need to be able to know. Graduates need training and not just education. Education is doing the opposite of what it was intended to do. Okay. Someone is crediting Honorable Captain Mike Mukula and says, that lesson by your mother, that's what we all need going forward.
Yeah.
That's how I leave it today. Okay, thank you. I will give you each 1 minute of a parting shot. I'll start with Professor, Dr. Mhumza, Honorable Mara, Professor Lawrence, and lastly, Honorable Captain Mike Mukula. Professor, your 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you very much. It has been an interesting debate, and I hope we pick something from it. Just two things in conclusion. Yeah, we are going to go AI, and the one thing we shouldn't forget, and maybe we should be scared of, is what Dr. Mike Mukula talked about, replacing the nurses with robotics. So what kind of AI, what kind of internet are we going to go into? Because if we automate people out of jobs, and then we end up with a jobless army, we had better prepare for more crime, we had better prepare for more conflict resolution experts, and all of that. I think it is early days, but let us focus and know where these things are coming from. What do they mean for us? Otherwise, we shouldn't expect chickens to celebrate Christmas.
Dr. Mhumza.
Culture and ethics do matter.
Yes.
Not just about those other skills. Some of the people ruining this country and the economy are highly professionally trained.
Exactly.
But their culture and ethics is missing.
Wow. Culture will eat strategy for breakfast and lunch.
Thank you, Timothy. I'll run through it. I think at a policy level, we need to have equal pay for equal value of jobs done. So which means science teachers and art teachers, we need to consider that particular policy. Strategic focus on future jobs. As a matter of policy, we need to look at it. We also need to look at the minimum pay for our people outside there. Doctor talked about it. These people who are walking down the factories, why should 150,000, what will it do? Can we consider issue of minimum pay? I know it's very controversial. Let us fund the polytechnics, get them back. That's the future of the future jobs for our country. I know that we have occupational safety and health standards and laws in place. Some of our workers sometimes get abused, mainly by foreign investors. So I think I would like to ask the Ministry of Labor and local government to make sure we enforce the laws and no citizen should be abused. And finally, Timothy, this one I have to say, my people of Otuke have said that since our good friends, you know, we are on this show, Uganda Electricity Distribution Company, took over from Omeme. They have received numerous and unacceptable power cuts. So my good friend who was seated on my left here, the MD, the ED, please make sure you have the powers for citizens. You promised us that this thing was going to be seamless. Please, let's deal with power cuts because it affects how the artisans and the small people there do their business. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you very much. Professor Lawrence.
Thank you, Timothy, and Ugandans who have been tuning in. But here is what I really need to end with. Timothy, that let's think of a car that was being driven by any person in this country in 1990. No one here can buy it today. They are new cars, new models. unless you need a vintage car to keep somewhere and you look at it. So if that has been true for cars, it should be true for how the education system should also be treated. I respect grandparents and the elders, but it is also shameful to think or to assume that the grandparents' solutions will solve the problems of grandchildren. It's not going to happen. The economy has changed, and you can see it all over the world. There is a new economy. So time is now for us to really focus and prioritize resources to an economy that is making money for the country, can create more jobs for our young people. This business of us saying the ecosystem or what, that ecosystem begins with a well-trained human capital, trained in relevant economic-related things. So the digital economy is the way to go today. And if, and I really request Honorable Captain Mike Mukula today, if you can push this to be in the NRM manifesto, the things you listed, to leave this legacy in this country. That's how we change Uganda to have a fighting chance in the economic order today. Thank you very much.
Lastly, Honorable Captain Mike.
Two parting shots. One, a case study. I was a student in aviation, flying aeroplanes in Texas, in Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, I used to fly, come back to class, but I had two jobs. One with an Italian, selling ice cream, cakes, and so on. And then the other one, I used to sell Kinney shoes, like butter. When I went there, I now learned one thing, that when I go back home, I should set up something similar to the Italian. So to the young people who are out there, when you're out making money or earning what you call cheyo, what you learn there, bring it back home. What did I learn? To do ice cream with my hands. I came and taught people. I set up Bimbo ice cream here. That was my business. Sudhir and the late, his son, Rajiv, and the daughters used to come and buy ice cream every day. I built my first house from ice cream. I don't know you get my point. You remember Bimbo ice cream? A case study. Now, second parting shot. The powder cake is demographics. But let me tell you one very important thing. A large population, when strategically managed, can be a powerful driver to economic growth, innovation, and national influence. For a country like Uganda, with a fast-growing population, a youthful population can be moved into major opportunities. Let me give you 8 or 9 opportunities. Very quickly, demographic dividends. Youthful population provides a large working age population because they're young and dynamic. If you retrain them, retool them, repurpose them, they will fit the economy. Number 2, and higher productivity and economic expansion and innovation. Second, a large domestic market, like China did and India. They have generated, spurred the economy out of a large population. Number 3, a workforce potential with a deep labor pool of diverse sectors, agriculture, manufacturing, ICT, services, etc. Number 4, innovation and entrepreneurship, where I was. That's where you need to go to. That's where our young people need to look at. That is where you have startup ecosystems, technical hubs, and so on and so forth. Number 5, cultural and creative industry growth. This is where the energy now of world economy is driving to. The young people need to look at creativity. These young people you're talking about are creative. When I look at the young people now, you've got a child 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and if you give them a phone, they can do magic. They know it better than you. Then the 4th, regional and global influence. These are key areas. What you call large population gives you a greater geopolitical weight and also for strategic reasons. The 7th is public revenue base. With this, it gives you a tax base, a workforce with a higher purchasing power parity is strength for the country.
Okay.
Then the A is diaspora remittances. These girls were in, and boys were in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, in UK, and so on. Those remittances to this country give our economy what you call a backbone in the what you call the ecosystem of our forex. Then lastly, resilience through diversity, ethnic and cultural linguistic diversity. We talk about this as a dividing factor. This is something which is past, like what has caused problems in Somalia, what caused problems in Rwanda, which caused what you call genocide. Same language, same culture, and same religion. 85% of the Rwandese are Catholics. But this ethnic divide was manipulated and misused. What caused the problem? Death. So number one, the most important baseline of this is that young people and all Ugandans must learn one thing. Infrastructure number one on economic growth, infrastructure number one is national security and stability.
Thank you very much. Two messages came in. One said that the highest job now with the highest pay is being an MP. Honorable Mara, you've heard that one. The next one was a parent who is talking about a child who went and did community rehabilitation, and for 4 years they've been struggling to get a job. I think reskilling and training would be good. I
will be giving everybody here my book on case studies against the odds.
Okay.
I will pass this to everybody.
Thank you very much. So for you watching, thank you very much for watching. For the production team for making today possible. The gentlemen here, thank you so much for making time. Professor Sarah, thank you for making time. We'll end it with this quote: learning is a process and not an event. Good morning.
UBC, inspiring Uganda. In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet.
Tune of 12 figures. 12 figures, that's where you get into the hundreds of billions of dollars. So with a country that already has an endemic, systemic problem with money